In the headlines, North Korea fires more short-range projectiles from the country's east coast, a third of its kind in a matter of a week. This in apparent show of displeasure with the ongoing military drills between Seoul and Washington. South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se is set to raise the issues of North Korea and Japan at the UN Human Rights meeting this week, becoming the first top diplomat since 2006 to attend the global gathering. And plus, the crisis in Ukraine rattles the global market. A look at how the unrest in the region is forcing stocks in Asia, the U.S., and Europe to plummet. ARIRANG News at 8 begins now. Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Tuesday, March 4th here in Seoul. I am Yoo Li-an. We begin this evening with North Korea's latest provocation in less than a week. The communist state again fired off multiple short-range rockets into the East Sea this afternoon. Unlike the previous launches that included no more than 4 missiles, Pyongyang sent a total of 7, stepping up its apparent protest against the ongoing South Korea-U.S. joint military drills. Our Yoo Li-an has our top story.
At around 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, North Korea fired 4 short-range projectiles using a multiple rocket launcher into the East Sea. This according to Seoul's defense ministry. These missiles have a range of about 150 kilometers. Immediately following reports of the short-range projectile launches, the defense ministry announced that North Korea had already fired 3 short-range missiles into the East Sea earlier Tuesday morning, bringing the total of missiles launched on Tuesday to 7. The ones fired in the morning flew about 55 kilometers. Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok labeled Tuesday's launches as explicit acts of aggression against the ongoing joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, adding that they are keeping a close watch on the possibility of additional provocations. The North Korean regime fired 4 short-range missiles into its eastern waters last Thursday, and then 2 Scud-C short-range missiles on Monday. The sharp rise in the number of launches comes as North Korea has been stepping up its rhetoric. Pyongyang called out Washington earlier on Tuesday for deploying its nuclear-powered submarine to South Korea's southernmost port city of Busan as part of the joint military drills. North Korea's main internet-based propaganda website 우리민족끼리 called the move a provocation for a nuclear war against the communist country. Yoo Li-an, ARIRANG News.
The reunions of families separated by the Korean War last month served as a grave reminder that there are about 71,000 South Koreans still waiting for the same chance. President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday called for all-out efforts to make sure they get it. Our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun reports.
Just days after proposing to North Korea that reunions for war-separated families be held on a regular basis, President Park Geun-hye called for other ways for the family members on both sides of the border to resume contact.
통일부와 대한적집사사는 상봉 정례화는 물론이고 생사 확인과 서신 교환, 화상 상봉 등을 실현시키기 위해 북한과 협의하기를 바랍니다.
At Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the South Korean leader highlighted the urgency of holding more of the humanitarian events.
남북한에 있는 많은 이산 가족들이 한을 안고 돌아가셨는데 생존해 계신 이산 가족들이 한 번이라도 헤어진 가족들을 만나려면 상봉 규모를 매년 6,000명 이상으로 늘려야 하는 것으로 압니다.
The president's remarks come less than 2 weeks after the two Koreas held their first reunion event in more than 3 years. Some 80 family members from each side attended last month's family gatherings. President Park then said the government's new preparatory committee for reunification should initially listen to public opinion on the issue and draw up a blueprint in an open and transparent way. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
As South Korea prepares for the reunification of the Korean peninsula, it is looking to Germany for lessons on bringing a divided nation together. Our Hwang Sung-hee sat down with German economist Karl-Heinz Packe for his view on the possible steps Seoul should take.
German economist Karl-Heinz Packe, who is an expert on German unification, says Giving North Koreans a clear economic perspective is key in preparing for the reunification of the Korean peninsula.
You know, Seoul is a city of 20 million, the whole metropolitan area of 20 million people, a thriving economy. So once the border is open, North Koreans will come in great numbers.
In an interview with ARIRANG News on Tuesday, Park Hae said the Koreas must begin by forming a currency union and transforming and privatizing the rundown North Korean industrial sector. This process cost Germany over $2 trillion. Although there are varying estimates, it's expected to cost Korea around $3.5 trillion. But Park Hae assures it will be money well spent.
First of all, North Korea has quite a supply of raw materials. And with all the trade links that South Korea has to Europe and America, I think there are all advantages you can think of to invest in Northern Korea.
But the outlook is not all rosy. With a reduced threat of war upon reunification of the two Koreas, there is the question of what will happen to the thousands of North Korean soldiers who represent nearly 40% of the population.
You will have high unemployment for a while. We did have very high unemployment in Eastern Germany for a very long time, and still the unemployment rate in Eastern Germany is higher than in Western Germany, even today. But that's the price to be paid.
Park Hae says Germany experienced structural difficulties and suffered from low growth rates for a while. But despite the struggles, he agrees with South Korean President Park Geun-hye that a reunified Korea would have benefits for both sides.
So in your view, do you think reunification would be a bonanza for the two Koreas?
But we did have, as a consequence of unification, some major economic reforms. And today, Germany is one of the leading, the stability anchor in Europe. So the whole venture has been successful, and I would expect exactly the same in the case of Korea.
Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Now, Korea's foreign minister is set to raise the issue of the Japanese military's use of sex slaves during World War II himself at the upcoming UN human rights meeting this week, hinting at Seoul's seriousness about tackling the issue related to Japan's wartime atrocities. Our Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will address the UN Human Rights Council this week to raise the issue of the so-called comfort women, or women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. Seoul's foreign ministry said Tuesday Minister Yoon will give a speech in Geneva on Wednesday local time to convey the country's stance on the human rights issue. This is the first time since 2006 Seoul's top diplomat will attend a UN Human Rights Council session. Minister Yoon is expected to call on Japan to compensate the victims of its wartime program of military sexual slavery. The move comes amid Tokyo's continued denials of its past wrongdoing. Japanese media outlets recently quoted Japan's senior vice minister of education, Yoshitaka Sakurada, as saying that a 1993 apology for the sexual slavery system was fabricated, while calling for a re-examination of the supporting testimony. The Kono statement is an official apology issued by Tokyo's then Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono to apologize for the atrocities Japan committed during its imperialist past. Tokyo's right-wing Liberal Democratic Party said those who were foreign ministry officials at the time should be summoned regarding the testimony. The LDP also said it will start a petition to call for a revision of the statement. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
For the latest in news that impacts Korea and the world, join Yoo Ji-hye for a lively half hour that covers politics, business, international news, and much more. Live at 8 every weeknight on ARIRANG TV.
Independent lawmaker An Chol-soo is taking heat from all sides after announcing that his fledgling party would merge with the main opposition camp, and the ruling Senate party has been one of the first to unleash its criticism. Our National Assembly correspondent Kim Young-gil has more.
The ruling Saenuri Party is taking aim at entrepreneur turned lawmaker An Chol-soo, whose surprise merger with the main opposition Democratic Party has changed the political landscape in Korea. Saenuri says that An's true colors have been revealed, and on Tuesday the Saenuri floor leader lashed out.
I wonder if Representative An feels at all apologetic toward his dumbfounded supporters. He has broken his promise to create a new politics, which he emphasized as the only viable alternative to the politics of the establishment.
Members of the Democratic Party who were working with An on his new political vision party were quick to come to An's defense.
It is highly regrettable that the Saenuri Party continues to speak slanderous words about forming a new opposition coalition. We are here to provide politics for the people and for the country. We urge them to stop disparaging us.
The merger is widely being seen as a result of the sense of crisis felt by two liberal parties ahead of local elections on June 4th. The elections represented a major challenge for the opposition bloc, which would likely have seen liberal voters split between the DP and An's party, giving Saenuri an advantage. But more than anything, it has raised questions about An's leadership, especially because he has retreated from election campaigns in the past. The two sides are now expected to go through the difficult task of shaping the new party's platform. But there are also concerns on both sides. Some DP lawmakers have said the merger is unwise, while An's aides have expressed concern about how many candidates each party will be allowed to field in the June elections. The DP has little to lose in the deal, as the party needs fresh blood to improve its standing from the public, and however is at risk of being absorbed by the larger main opposition party. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Korea's nominee for Central Bank Governor Lee Joo-yeol, who is expected to take the post on April 1st, sets his vision to communicate more fully with the market. ARIRANG's Hwang Ji-hye has more on the BOK veterans' vision and some of the challenges that lie ahead.
The nominee for the Bank of Korea's next governor, Lee Joo-yeol, says he fully acknowledges the importance of communicating with the market. During a phone interview with the Korean daily Joseonilbo on Monday, he said that the central bank has to gain the trust of the people. He went on to say that the central bank has to focus not just on the numbers, but should look for ways to be in harmony with the actual economic sentiment. Back in 2009, when Lee was sworn in as the senior deputy governor, he pledged to focus on boosting economic growth by working closely with the government. Whether Lee's perception of the economy remains intact is unknown, but the veteran central bank official is considered to be neutral when it comes to monetary policy. The presidential office spokesperson said that Lee has a profound knowledge of the central bank's business and has a good sense of the international financial market. Lee started work at the central bank in 1977 and has held key positions through the years, including as the head of the research department. Once he takes office next month, experts say that he will be preoccupied with matters such as how to weather the impact of the U.S. Federal Reserve's tapering of its monetary stimulus program. The nation's snowballing household debt will also be a concern.
Lee will have to think deeply in terms of monetary policy about how to counteract the real estate and household debt problems that are growing as major threats to the Korean economy.
The National Assembly will hold a confirmation hearing for Lee within the next 3 weeks. The lawmakers do not, however, have the power to veto the appointment. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
SK Group chief Choi Tae-won said Tuesday that he will give up his positions at the boards of companies' affiliates, including SK Innovation, which owns Korea's top refiner, SK Energy Corporation. His decision came after the nation's top court late last month upheld a 4-year jail sentence for him for embezzling company funds. Choi, the head of the country's third largest conglomerate, was convicted of embezzling $43 million from SK Telecom and its affiliate to funnel the funds into personal investments in stock futures and options in 2008. The ruling comes as Koreans demand a tougher punitive measures on crimes committed by heads of family-controlled groups. The tensions in Ukraine could be easing as Russia has decided to pull back its troops from the Ukrainian border. The withdrawal comes after the world set the table for economic and diplomatic sanctions on Russia over its military intervention in Ukraine. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
President Putin has ordered troops taking part in military exercises near the Ukraine border to return to their bases within 48 hours. Presidential spokesman Dmitry Peskov made an announcement Tuesday, calling the exercises a success. The surprise military drills in the Central and Western Territorial Commands were launched last Wednesday as tensions rose in Ukraine. They involved over 150,000 troops. The withdrawal comes after the European Union condemned the drills as an aggression and threatened Russia with sanctions if the troops did not return to their bases by Thursday. While the order will be welcomed by the West, U.S. President Barack Obama on Monday said Russia had already violated international laws with its military intervention in Ukraine.
I think the world is largely united in recognizing that the steps Russia has taken are a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty, Ukraine's territorial integrity.
While Obama stressed the importance of de-escalating the situation, he also warned that the U.S. had been examining a series of economic and diplomatic sanctions that would isolate Russia. Following the president's remarks, the U.S. Trade Representative announced late Monday that it has suspended upcoming bilateral trade and investment talks with Moscow. There's also the issue of Crimea. Ukraine claims that some 16,000 Russian troops have been deployed on that Crimean peninsula since last week. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And despite positive signs out of Ukraine, the unrest in the region has spooked global financial markets. While Russia's stock market and currency tumbled to levels unseen in recent years, other markets around the globe were also affected. Our Song Jae-sun has the figures.
Western leaders are threatening Russian President Vladimir Putin with economic penalties for his military intervention in Crimea, but the financial system already appears to be punishing him. The Moscow stock market suffered its biggest plunge in 5 years on Monday, with the benchmark MYSEX losing 11% before recouping some of its losses in early Tuesday trading. The ruble also hit a new low on Monday, and Russia's central bank tried to contain the plunge by raising its key interest rate by 1.5 percentage point to 7%. It was the largest interest rate hike since the global financial crisis in 1998. Stocks in global markets stumbled across the board, with investors selling off shares, particularly in companies with exposure to Ukraine and Russia. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed nearly 1% on Monday, but the European markets were hit harder, with the London benchmark Financial Times Stock Exchange ending the day 1.5% lower, and Paris and Frankfurt stocks losing 2.7% and 3.4% respectively. Stocks on the Ukraine exchange in Kiev fell about 12%, and the country's currency fell to a new low against the U.S. dollar. Ukraine faces a possible default on its debt as Moscow is cutting off aid to its limping economy. In Asian markets, Seoul shares closed slightly lower on Tuesday after shedding nearly 1% on Monday, while Tokyo and Hong Kong shares rebounded on bargain hunting after losing more than 1% each on Monday. The uncertainties pushed oil prices higher, with Brent crude futures adding nearly 2% in London, and gold also gained over 2% to $1,350 an ounce to mark its biggest gain of the year. Song Jae-sun, ARIRANG News.
And staying with stories making headlines around the globe, from the latest developments in a deadly knife attack in China to Forbes' list of the world's richest billionaires, we connect live to Paul Lee in the news center. Now, Paul, let's start with the China knife massacre. Did the police seize the remaining suspects?
That's right, Ji-hye. China's Xinhua news agency says that the 3 remaining suspects involved in the attack at a railway station in southwestern China are now in custody. Chinese public security minister said Tuesday that 6 men and 2 women were responsible for the stabbing spree last Saturday that killed 30 people and injured over 140 others. Beijing says a separatist group from the far western region of Xinjiang, home to the Muslim Uyghur minority, is believed to have carried out the assault. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department has condemned the attack, calling it a horrific, senseless act of violence. And Forbes magazine has released its annual list of the world's richest people. Bill Gates reclaimed the top spot for 2014 with a net worth of $76 billion. This despite giving away billions to charity in recent years. The founder of Microsoft stepped down as chairman last month to fill the role of technology advisor while continuing philanthropic efforts with his global foundation. Mexican telecommunications mogul Carlos Slim came in second place with $72 billion, followed by Spanish clothing conglomerate founder Armancio Ortega. The Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, ranked fourth at just $58 billion. Some of Korea's most powerful industry leaders also made the cut. Samsung's legendary chairman Lee Kun-hee ranked 102nd with a net worth of about $11 billion. His only son, Jae came in at $4.5 billion after being named vice chairman of the group last year, while the chairman of Hyundai Motor broke in at 202nd place. This year, however, was a record-breaking year for women on the Forbes list. Out of the some 1,600 billionaires, 172 were women. Christy Walton of the Walmart family fortune remains the richest woman in the world at nearly $37 billion, followed by Lillian Bettencourt and Alice Walton. And moving to South Africa, and the second day of the murder trial of the 27-year-old Paralympic athlete Oscar Pistorius. He is charged in the 2013 shooting of the death of his girlfriend, model, and TV reality star Reva Steenkamp. Pistorius has pleaded not guilty, saying he mistook her for an intruder. His defense lawyers are now cross-examining a key witness who told a court in Pretoria that she heard terrible screams from a woman on the night of February 14th last year.
What my husband said was in the media, they said Mr. Oscar Pistorius accidentally shot his girlfriend because he thought there was an intruder and he was shooting the intruder. And what I heard that female screaming terribly. Her life was threatened in the house. I could not imagine her life not being threatened in the house. So it could not be for me. Milady, I wasn't there, so I never saw anything. I could only hear her shouts and her terrible screaming.
The high-profile trial has already been mired in controversy after a photograph of the witness was shown during a television broadcast, despite her request not to be identified. That's all for me for now, but I'll be bringing you more updates in just about 2 hours.
Let's get a check on the weather with our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Now, Pyongyang, capital Seoul enjoyed doses of spring-like weather for several days. Will these warm conditions stick for a while?
Well, Tia, don't get too used to it because cold weather awaits us starting tomorrow through the rest of the week. Taking a look at the current conditions, Jeju and the southern regions are under the influence of a low-pressure trough, which is why those regions are seeing sporadic showers and, in some cases, snow. In fact, a heavy snowfall watch has been issued on the mountains of Jeju, which are forecast to get 1 to 5 centimeters of snow. Also, a pre-heavy snowfall watch has been issued for Gangwon-do province, which may get over 30 centimeters of snow. And currently, most parts of the central regions, including Seoul, are seeing slightly higher than normal levels of fine dust, but that will go away by tomorrow morning. Taking a look at Wednesday's readings, Seoul's daytime high reaches 6 degrees, which is about 7 degrees lower than today. Meanwhile, Daegu and Busan hit the low teens. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Dokdo top out at 6 degrees, while Mount Kumgang makes it to 1 degree. Well, that's all the weather update for Korea, and here is the international weather.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. I'll be back with more news updates on our primetime news at 10 p.m. Korea time. See you then.